Every night, the familiar world vanishes. The walls dissolve, the laws of physics collapse, and a new reality unfurls. A sky may open where oceans once stood. A stranger's face may wear the mask of a friend. Time may twist and fracture until past and future blur into one. We call this place the dream, but its landscapes are stranger than any continent and more vast than any map. It is the theater of the mind, built in darkness, yet glowing with impossible light. In dreams, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. You may fly without wings, breathe beneath water, or speak with the dead. The impossible feels natural, and the absurd feels true. And when you wake, you carry with you fragments of another life, memories of a world that never was, but somehow still lingers, fragile as smoke. Science tells us that every night, our brains fall into this secret world, a place where neurons spark in chaotic patterns, weaving together memories, fears, and desires. Some scientists call it memory consolidation. Others call it emotional rehearsal. Philosophers see it as the window to the unconscious. Mystics see it as a doorway to other realms. Yet despite centuries of searching, one mystery endures. Why? Why must every brain conjure these nightly hallucinations? Why does the mind retreat into such wild, chaotic stories instead of resting in silence? The answer lies in the very heart of what it means to be human. Dreams are not accidents. They are not noise. They are the restless language of the sleeping brain, a language written in symbols, stitched with memories, drenched in emotion, and shaped by the logic of another world. They are both nonsense and necessity. And so, each night, as the body surrenders to sleep, the mind journeys into its own labyrinth. Every dream is both alien and intimate, absurd and meaningful, fragile and eternal. To ask why we dream is to ask why the mind creates it all. It is to glimpse the deep truth that consciousness does not rest when we sleep. It invents, it remembers, it warns, it heals. This is the story of why your brain creates crazy dreams every night. A story of science, of mystery, of philosophy. A story of a hidden world that unfolds behind your closed eyes. Night arrives like a tide, and with it, the slow surrender of consciousness. The body rests, but the mind does not vanish into silence. Instead, it enters cycles, patterns of electrical rhythm, waves of activity that carry it deeper and deeper into the unknown. At first, the descent feels like fading. Thoughts loosen their grip. Logic thins. The weight of the day begins to dissolve. Yet as the eyelids close, a hidden process awakens, one that has shaped humanity since its earliest beginnings. Sleep is not the absence of awareness, but another form of it. Within the quiet hours, the brain enters stages, drifting between light sleep, deep sleep, and the strange and luminous state called REM, rapid eye movement. It is here, in this restless sea of neural activity, that dreams ignite. The eyes dart beneath closed lids as though watching invisible scenes unfold. Muscles fall into paralysis so the body does not act out its visions. And within the skull, the brain glows with the energy of waking life, even as the conscious self surrenders to its private theater. Every human being experiences this cycle, regardless of culture, age, or history. It is as ancient as life itself. Long before science could measure it, long before philosophers named it, dreams were there, unfurling behind the eyes of early humans sleeping beneath the stars. They became stories told by firelight, omens carried to temples, visions written into scripture. The ancients wondered if God spoke through them, if ancestors whispered in their silence, If dreams were windows into worlds beyond the mortal, and though science now peers into their mechanisms, the wonder remains. The landscapes of dreams obey no map. They bend and twist with logic that feels both absurd and intimate. In one instant, you may be walking familiar streets, only to find they lead into oceans. Faces morph, locations blur, time folds upon itself. Yet amid this strangeness lies a peculiar truth. Within the dream, you rarely question it. The impossible feels ordinary. You do not ask how the dead returned, or why gravity ceased, or why you stand in two places at once. The dream insists upon its own reality, and the mind accepts it. Neuroscience offers glimpses of how this theater is staged. As REM sleep ignites, the brain's memory networks flare. The hippocampus, keeper of our experiences, replays fragments of waking life. But the pieces are shuffled, recombined, stitched together into narratives that make no sense and yet feel meaningful. Emotional centers, like the amygdala, burn with activity, coloring dreams with fear, joy, or longing. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and reason, falls quiet, leaving the mind free to wander without judgment, without doubt. And so the dream unfolds, unbound by the strict order of waking thought. But what purpose does this serve? Why would a brain in need of rest fill itself with illusions more vivid than waking life? Some argue that dreams are accidental, mere byproducts of neural firing, noise in the circuits of memory, yet evidence suggests otherwise. Studies reveal that people deprived of REM sleep become anxious, unstable, and impaired in memory. Deprive the brain of dreams, and the waking self begins to fracture. Far from being meaningless, dreams appear essential. They weave memory into lasting form. Experiences of the day are replayed, sorted, and consolidated, transforming fragile impressions into stable knowledge. They regulate emotion, replaying traumas in symbolic form, softening their sting, preparing the mind to face them again. They inspire creativity, breaking apart rigid patterns of logic and forging strange new connections. To dream is to heal, to learn, to imagine. Yet there remains the strangeness of their form, the wild illogic, the surreal landscapes, the madness of the nightly visions. Why must dreams be so strange? Why not simply replay the day as it was? The answer may lie in the very function of dreaming. By breaking the rules, by bending time and space, dreams free the mind from the rigid prison of waking order. They allow the brain to explore possibilities it would never entertain in daylight. They teach by distortion, reveal by disguise, prepare by exaggeration. They are rehearsals not of what has happened, but of what could happen. Every night, your brain constructs worlds as real as waking life, yet unconstrained by it. These worlds are fragile, gone the moment you wake, slipping through your fingers like smoke. And yet, for the brief hours yet there, remains the strangeness of their form, the wild illogic, the surreal landscapes, the madness of the nightly visions. Why must dreams be so strange? Why not simply replay the day as it was? The answer may lie in the very function of dreaming. By breaking the rules, by bending time and space, dreams free the mind from the rigid prison of waking order. They allow the brain to explore possibilities it would never entertain in daylight. They teach by distortion, reveal by disguise, prepare by exaggeration. They are rehearsals not of what has happened, but of what could happen. Every night, your brain constructs worlds as real as waking life, yet unconstrained by it. These worlds are fragile, gone the moment you wake, slipping through your fingers like smoke. And yet, for the brief hours they exist, they are entire realities unto themselves. They are both absurd and profound, both trivial and necessary. When you wake, you may dismiss them. You may laugh at their nonsense, forget their strangeness before breakfast. But somewhere in the silence of the night, your brain created an entire world and lived within it. And whether you remember or not, those worlds leave traces in your memory, in your emotions, in your creativity, in your sense of self. Dreams are the nightly collapse of the ordinary into the extraordinary. They are the most intimate, not of the world outside, but of the world within. And they remind us that the mind, even in rest, is restless. It does not stop. It invents. It weaves. It dreams. The descent into sleep begins not with silence, but with rhythm. The waking brain hums with rapid activity, networks of neurons firing in ceaseless conversation. As the eyes grow heavy and the body slackens, these rhythms begin to change. Brain waves slow. Thoughts dissolve into fragments, and the steady beat of restoration begins. In the depths, neurons fire in slow synchrony, great waves of electrical silence followed by bursts of activity, like the ocean inhaling and exhaling in vast, unseen tides. Here, the body repairs itself, tissues heal, hormones release, energy is restored. Yet even in this deepest silence, the brain is not idle. It replays the day, selecting what to keep, discarding what to forget. Memories strengthen their bonds, weaving themselves into the architecture of identity. The sleeper lies still, but the mind works, invisible and relentless. And then, as though by secret signal, the rhythm changes again. The brain flares with activity, nearly as intense as wakefulness. The eyes dart beneath closed lids, the heart quickens, breathing becomes irregular. The muscles, however, fall into paralysis, locked in place as though chained by unseen force. The body is still, but the mind is ablaze. This is REM sleep, the stage where dreams ignite. The paradox of REM is stark. The brain is alive with energy, yet the body is frozen. It is as if nature, in its wisdom, shackles the muscles so the dreamer does not act out the visions unfolding within. For without this paralysis, the sleeper might leap, run, or fight, lost in a hallucination made flesh. In the fragile balance of REM, the mind is free to create, while the body remains still. Inside the skull, electrical storms surge. Networks flare in the visual cortex, painting images from nothing. The hippocampus replays memories, fragments of experience stitched into new forms. The amygdala, seat of fear and desire, burns brightly, infusing dreams with emotion. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, architect of logic and control, falls quiet, its dominance set aside. And so the dream emerges, vivid, emotional, irrational, yet utterly convincing. Each night, the cycle repeats. Light sleep, deep sleep, REM, then back again. 4, 5, sometimes 6 times in a single night, the mind walks this circuit, each cycle lasting about 90 minutes. Dreams appear, not only in REM, but there they reach their wildest intensity, glowing with hallucinatory color and impossible detail. To sleep is to move through these cycles, to live and relive countless hidden lives, to journey through the machinery of the night. Yet the strangeness of dreams cannot be explained by cycles alone. The brain does not simply replay the day, it distorts it. The laws of waking life are abandoned, replaced with a logic all their own. Time stretches or collapses. Faces blend. Places shift without reason. And in the dream, this distortion feels true. It is not until waking that the absurdity is revealed. Why does the brain choose this path? Why not simply rest in silence or review memories as they were? Perhaps because distortion is the point. In twisting memory, the brain discovers new associations, new possibilities, new lessons. A face from childhood may appear beside a fear of today, weaving past and present into symbolic rehearsal. A landscape never seen may combine fragments of places once glimpsed, blending the familiar with the alien. The strangeness is not error, but innovation, the mind breaking its own chains. For as much as sleep restores the body, dreams restore the self. They regulate emotions, soften traumas, allow fears to be rehearsed in the safety of illusion. They consolidate learning, embedding knowledge more deeply by replaying it in altered form. They spark creativity, forging connections that waking logic would dismiss. The mind, freed from the rigid order of daylight, becomes playful, daring, unrestrained, and in that play, it heals and learns. The machinery of sleep is precise, yet the worlds it produces are wild. Beneath the steady rhythms of brain waves, imagination erupts. Every night, you slip into this cycle, often without memory of its passage. You surrender to its stages, unaware of the work it performs. But whether remembered or forgotten, the process shapes you. It builds your memory, regulates your mood, fuels your creativity. You are, in part, the sum of your dreams. Sleep is not a pause. It is a hidden life, lived in fragments of vision and silence. To close your eyes is to enter the machinery of the night, to surrender to rhythms older than humanity itself, to allow the brain to weave its secret theater. And when morning comes, you awaken not as you were, but as someone new, subtly altered by the journeys you cannot recall. Dreams are the most extraordinary of illusions, and yet they arise from the most ordinary of processes, the cycles of sleep that carry us through the night. They remind us that rest is never idle, that even in stillness, the mind moves. Every night, you are rebuilt by silence, reshaped by rhythm, reborn by dreams. There is a strangeness in dreams that no waking experience can match. A door opens into a room that should be familiar, but the walls bend into infinite corridors. A voice speaks with the face of a stranger, but the memory of a friend. Time fractures. Hours pass in moments. Moments stretch into lifetimes. And through it all, the dreamer rarely questions it. The impossible feels ordinary. The absurd feels true. This is the peculiar logic of the dream. It is a logic that defies reason, yet compels belief. In dreams, contradictions coexist without conflict. The dead return, and no one asks how. Gravity vanishes, and the sky becomes an ocean, yet you swim through it without hesitation. Events unfold not by cause and effect, but by association, by the strange gravity of memory and emotion. And this, perhaps, is the heart of their mystery, that they are incoherent, yet feel coherent, chaotic, yet carry a shadow of meaning. Science peers into this paradox and finds hints of explanation. The prefrontal cortex, ruler of reason and arbiter of doubt, grows quiet during REM sleep. Without its watchful governance, the mind is freed from the laws of waking logic. Other regions, the limbic system, the visual cortex, surge with activity, flooding the dream with color, emotion, and imagery. What emerges is a narrative untethered from reason, but rich with sensation. Dreams do not seek accuracy, they seek intensity. And yet, their intensity is not random. The mind does not summon nonsense for its own sake. Within the chaos lies structure, a hidden order born of association. A memory of childhood merges with the fear of tomorrow, not because the I two are logical companions, but because their emotional resonance draws them together. A song heard in daylight blends with the face of a lost friend, because the networks of the brain replay fragments side by side. The dream becomes a tapestry of scattered threads, woven not by logic, but by resonance. This explains why dreams so often shift without warning. One scene collapses into another. A place vanishes. A face transforms. And yet within the dream, the transition feels seamless. The brain does not require continuity. It requires only connection. In dreams, narrative is not built upon cause and effect, but upon meaning and memory. And so the logic of the dream, though alien, is not meaningless. It is the language of association, spoken in images instead of words. But why must the dream be so strange? Why must its stories fracture and distort, rather than replay waking life as it was? Perhaps because distortion itself is the key. In distorting memory, the mind discovers new patterns. In bending reality, it rehearses possibilities. In breaking logic, it reveals truths that waking thought cannot reach. Consider the dream of fear. A shadow chases you down endless corridors, though you cannot name its face. The fear is real, though the details are nonsense. Yet the nonsense is not useless. In rehearsing the fear in exaggerated form, the mind prepares you for waking threats. It trains the emotional circuits, softens trauma, builds resilience. What seems absurd is in fact rehearsal, cloaked in symbolism. Consider, too, the dream of creativity. Many discoveries, works of art, and inventions have emerged from dreams. The mind, freed from logic, combines fragments in unexpected ways. A chemist sees the structure of a molecule as a serpent biting its own tail. A musician wakes with a melody that never existed before. An artist sketches a vision seen in sleep. Dreams are fertile, not despite their strangeness, but because of it. Their chaos is the soil from which new ideas grow. Even nightmares, though terrifying, may serve a purpose. By confronting fear and illusion, the mind rehearses survival. The chase, the fall, the confrontation with death, these are primal rehearsals, preparing the brain for dangers real or imagined. To dream is to train, not in the safe language of reason, but in the vivid theater of fear. The surreal logic of dreams also raises questions that move beyond science. Why do we accept the impossible so easily? Why do we believe in worlds that dissolve at dawn? Perhaps because the mind, in dreaming, does not distinguish between real and imagined. To the brain, the vivid is the true. Neurons fire in the same patterns whether we see with eyes or with imagination. And so, in the dream, the unreal feels real because the brain makes no distinction. This blurring of reality and imagination reveals something profound. That reality itself is always mediated by the brain. Even in waking life, what we call the world is an image, assembled by neurons, shaped by perception, filtered by memory. Dreams strip away the anchor of external input, leaving only the raw machinery of imagination. They reveal that waking life and dreaming life are not opposites, but points along a continuum of perception. And perhaps this is why dreams linger in memory with such haunting power. A dream may vanish quickly, its details lost, but its emotions remain. You wake unsettled, or inspired, or sorrowful, not because the dream was real, but because the brain felt it as real. The dream collapses, but its imprint endures. To enter the dream is to enter a world where reason is absent, but meaning thrives. Its laws are not the laws of physics, but the laws of association. Its truths are not literal, but symbolic. It is a world that breaks the rules in order to reveal new ones. Every night, the brain builds these worlds, strange and beautiful, absurd and necessary. You drift into sleep, and your mind becomes a playwright of impossible theater. And though you may laugh at its nonsense in the morning, within the night it was real as any memory. Dreams are strange in permanence. It arrives as fragments, fleeting impressions, chemical traces vulnerable to time, to interference, to forgetting. Every moment of your day is filtered, processed, and stored not as it truly was, but as the brain decides to keep it. And each night, in the theater of dreams, those fragments are replayed, reshaped, and preserved. When the body falls into sleep, the brain begins the labor of memory. Neurons fire in patterns that echo waking experience. The hippocampus, that curved seahorse of tissue deep in the brain, becomes restless, replaying the day's events in miniature. Conversations, sights, sensations, they flicker again, not as conscious recollection, but as silent sparks of activity. The brain is sorting, choosing, weaving. What is irrelevant fades into silence. What is meaningful is replayed, strengthened, encoded. Dreams are the outward form of this hidden process. The fragments of the day return, but they are distorted, stitched together with old memories, draped in strange imagery. A place you walked in daylight merges with a classroom from childhood. A face glimpsed on a screen blends with the voice of a loved one. The dream seems nonsense, but beneath its surface lies the work of consolidation. It is the brain weaving the fragile threads of experience into the tapestry of identity. Without this nightly work, memory falters. Experiments have shown that when sleep is deprived, the ability to remember declines. Students who study but do not dream retain less than those who sleep soundly. Traumas left unprocessed intrude into waking life, sharp and unresolved. The mind requires dreams not for entertainment, but for survival. They are its rehearsal, its filing system, its secret architecture. But memory is not only storage, it is also transformation. In dreams, memories are not merely replayed, they are altered. Details shift, contexts change, emotions are attached or softened. The brain is not a librarian, but a storyteller, reshaping the past to prepare for the future. A painful moment may return in symbolic form, its sharp edges blunted, its weight lessened. A new skill may be rehearsed in fragmented simulation, neurons firing as though practicing in reality. In this way, dreams transform experience into knowledge, trauma into resilience, learning into permanence. Consider the musician who practices a piece by day and dreams of playing by night. Neural networks fire as if the instrument were in hand, strengthening pathways, deepening skill. Consider the child who learns language, whose dreams replay words and phrases, embedding them more firmly. Consider the adult haunted by grief, whose dreams return again and again to the lost face, each time dulling the wound until it can be born. Dreams are not passive reflections, they are active revisions. And so, each night, the brain curates the museum of the self. It chooses which memories to keep, which to discard, which to reshape. It builds the narrative continuity of identity, the sense of who we are and how we came to be. Without dreams, memory fragments. Without memory, the self dissolves. In this way, dreams are not luxuries. They are the silent architects of personhood. Yet even as they weave memory, dreams remain strange. Why does the brain not replay the day as it happened? Why does it clothe recollection in surreal disguise? Perhaps because the disguise is necessary. To dream too literally would trap the mind in repetition. To dream in distortion allows the brain to forge new associations, to connect the present with the past, the mundane with the extraordinary. The disguise is not flaw, but function. This function explains why dreams often feel imbued with significance. A memory of childhood may surface unexpectedly, attached to a symbol or a place that has no literal connection. The dream insists upon meaning, though waking reason may dismiss it. Yet the insistence itself is meaningful. For the brain is not replaying for accuracy. It is replaying for resonance. We are haunted by our dreams because they echo with the weight of memory reshaped. They feel significant not because they predict the future, but because they weave the past into new form. The dream is a memory seen through the lens of transformation, a recollection bent toward survival. In this way, dreams are deeply human. They are our brains telling us stories, not for amusement, but for continuity. They are the silent work that makes memory possible, the nightly weaving of identity from fragile strands. Without them, we would be creatures adrift, unable to hold the thread of who we are. Every night, as the body lies in stillness, the brain becomes a weaver. It takes the fragments of waking life, shuffles them, alters them, stitches them together. The dream is the outward shadow of this weaving, strange, illogical, absurd, but necessary. For without it, the past would dissolve, the present would falter, and the self would unravel. You are built each night in the silence of dreams. Every morning, you awaken not as you were, but as someone subtly altered, memory reshaped, identity preserved. And though you may forget the dream does not forget you. It leaves its mark, invisible but indelible, in the architecture of who you are. Dreams are not neutral landscapes. They pulse with feeling. They are drenched in fear, washed in joy, blurred by longing, pierced by sorrow. A dream may twist itself into shapes of wonder, but always at its heart lies emotion. It is the emotional core that gives dreams their intensity, that makes them unforgettable or haunting even after their images dissolve. And it is emotion that reveals the deeper purpose of the nightly theater. Fear is the most common companion. The chase through endless corridors, the fall from impossible heights, the faceless shadow that looms in silence. Nightmares are universal. Across cultures and ages, humans have known the terror of the dream. And though they may wake shaking, breathless, heart-pounding, there is strange logic in the terror. For in the darkness of sleep, the brain rehearses its dangers. The amygdala, guardian of fear, burns brightly during REM. It stages illusions of threat, forcing the dreamer to confront them in safety. These illusions train the brain to recognize fear, to regulate it, to endure it. But fear is not the only thread. Desire, too, runs through dreams. The embrace of the lost, the warmth of love that transcends waking absence, the surreal fulfillment of hidden longing. Dreams often return us to what we crave. The limbic system, saturated in dopamine and serotonin, creates visions soaked in yearning. And though these dreams may vanish with the dawn, their emotional trace remains. They remind us of what we lack, of what we value, of what drives us when awake. Grief lingers in dreams like a ghost that refuses to leave. The face of a loved one gone appears again, vivid, alive, speaking words that can never again be spoken in daylight. To the waking mind, this is illusion. To the dreaming mind, it is reunion. Neuroscience tells us the hippocampus and amygdala replay memories, stitching them with emotion. Philosophy tells us that dreams soften the blow of absence, giving the bereaved a place to meet their loss. Whether illusion or grace, such dreams heal. They allow grief to flow, to move, to transform, rather than stagnate. Some dreams carry anger, others sorrow, others joy so intense that the dreamer wakes laughing. What unites them is not their content, but their saturation in feeling. Dream images dissolve quickly, but emotions linger. Hours after waking, the fear of a nightmare may persist, or the peace of a joyful dream may brighten the day. This is because the emotional circuits of the brain fire as strongly in dreams as in waking life. The brain does not distinguish between real and imagined when it comes to feeling. The dream is fiction, but the emotion is real. Why would evolution favor such intensity in sleep? Because emotions must be regulated. A day filled with stress, grief, or anger cannot always be processed in waking life. Dreams provide a second chance, a hidden chamber in which feelings are replayed and reshaped. The trauma is encountered again, but softened, transformed, stripped of its sharpest edges. In this way, the mind rehearses resilience. Studies show that those who dream after trauma often recover more quickly, while those deprived of REM remain haunted, their pain unresolved. Nightmares, then, may be more than torment. They may be medicine. To relive fear in illusion is to prepare for it in reality. To confront loss in symbol is to make peace with absence. Even the most disturbing dream carries the possibility of healing. It is the brain's way of speaking to itself in a language of symbols, rehearsals, exaggerations. And yet, not all nightmares heal. Some repeat, looping endlessly, replaying trauma without resolution. This is seen in those who suffer post-traumatic stress. The mind, overwhelmed, cannot complete its rehearsal. Here, the dream becomes a prison instead of a cure. But even in this, the truth remains. Dreams are bound to emotion. They are the stage upon which the psyche grapples with what it cannot face in daylight. Beyond fear and grief, dreams also carry creativity's spark. Emotion fuels imagination, and in sleep, they ignite together. A dreamer wakes with a melody never heard, a story never written, an image never painted. These are not accidents. They are the product of a mind freed from logic, driven by feeling, weaving symbols into inspiration. Some of humanity's greatest works have arisen from the dream: discoveries, songs, art. In the laboratory of sleep, emotion and imagination collaborate, and creation follows. But perhaps the most mysterious dreams are those that feel prophetic, as though they reveal the future. Rationally, we dismiss them as coincidence, pattern recognition hidden in the subconscious. Yet their emotional power cannot be denied. A dream of disaster may haunt until the event arrives, and the dreamer feels it foretold. Science explains it as the brain's constant rehearsal of possibility, its pattern-finding nature extending into illusion. Philosophy sees it as the timelessness of dreams, where past, present, and future blur. Either way, the emotional weight makes them unforgettable. In this, we see the true role of emotion in dreams, not to deceive, but to imprint. Emotion gives dreams their weight, their persistence, their meaning. Without emotion, dreams would be fleeting nonsense. With it, they become powerful, haunting, transformative. They leave marks on memory, shape behavior, guide choices, even when their details vanish. Every night, then, the dreamer steps into an emotional forge. Fear sharpens, longing softens, grief transforms, joy renews. The brain does not rest in these hours. It processes, it heals, it creates. It speaks to itself in visions that defy reason but carry truth. Dreams remind us that we are creatures not only of thought, but of feeling. They show us that to be human is to live in stories soaked with emotion, both waking and sleeping. They reveal that even in silence, the heart speaks. And though the visions dissolve with dawn, the emotions remain, guiding us through the fragile hours of waking life. Dreams are not empty hallucinations. They are the mind's way of feeling itself alive. There is a peculiar moment in dreaming when strangeness becomes brilliance. A symbol bends into revelation. A nonsense image rearranges itself into clarity. A fragment of memory fuses with something new. What appears irrational in the night can emerge at dawn as a spark of creativity. For dreams are not only mirrors of memory and emotion, they are engines of invention. In waking life, thought is tethered by reason. Logic arranges ideas in sequence, pruning what does not fit, discarding what feels absurd. But in the dream, those boundaries vanish. The prefrontal cortex, guardian of order, falls silent. Networks that never meet in daylight converge in the dark. Fragments collide, images merge, memories combine with fantasies. The result is a landscape of impossible connections, and from those connections, new creations are born. History is filled with such moments. A chemist, haunted by the mystery of molecular structure, falls asleep and dreams of a serpent swallowing its own tail. He wakes with the vision that reveals the ring structure of benzene. A musician hears a melody in his dream, wakes with it still lingering, and writes a song that will be sung across generations. An inventor, puzzled by a problem of machinery, dreams of its solution and wakes to build what once seemed impossible. These stories are not accidents. They are testaments to the power of the dreaming mind to combine the ordinary into the extraordinary. Science has begun to measure this strange creativity. During REM sleep, the associative regions of the brain ignite. The networks that handle memory, emotion, and imagery overlap and cross-pollinate. Dreams become laboratories of the impossible, where imagination is unrestrained, where the absurd is tested, where new ideas emerge from unlikely unions. A face seen in passing may merge with a problem unsolved, and together they spark a solution. A melody half heard becomes the seed of a symphony. A dream that feels absurd in sleep becomes revelation in waking. Even the surreal landscapes of dreams reveal this creativity. The mind invents places never walked, architectures never built, skies never seen. It designs worlds that dissolve at dawn, but for the hours of their existence, they are complete. The dreamer walks streets that no city holds, sails seas that no map records, speaks languages that no tongue has spoken. These worlds are fleeting, but they reveal the capacity of the brain to generate reality itself, to create entire universes out of silence. Dreams also inspire art, not only through direct images, but through their mood. The atmosphere of a dream, its strangeness, its awe, its terror, lingers as a feeling even when the details vanish. Artists chase these feelings, shaping them into music, painting, poetry. A dream is both vision and emotion, and in this union lies inspiration. The strangeness that seems nonsensical in the night becomes, in daylight, the seed of beauty. But creativity in dreams is not limited to art. It is a survival tool. By recombining memories and experiences, dreams allow the brain to rehearse solutions to problems, to imagine scenarios it has not yet faced. The mind in sleep is not idle. It is experimenting, running simulations, exploring possibilities. What seems absurd is often rehearsal, disguised in metaphor. A dream of being trapped may reflect a waking challenge. A dream of flight may be the mind's symbolic answer to confinement. Creativity here is not luxury, but necessity. The mind solving itself in symbols. The looseness of dream logic also reveals the mind's capacity for play. In daylight, thought is burdened by consequence, by the demands of order. In dreams, it is freed to wander. And in wandering, it discovers. Play is not the opposite of seriousness. It is the foundation of creativity. Dreams are the purest play of the mind, unrestrained by rules, creating simply because it can. And from this play, invention is born. Even nightmares may hold creative spark. Their intensity imprints upon memory. Their surreal imagery demands interpretation. Many artists and writers have drawn from their darker dreams, turning terror into expression, pain into beauty. The nightmare is not only torment, but raw material, fuel for the imagination. In this way, the emotional storm of dreams becomes not only regulation, but creation. Perhaps this is why humanity has always revered dreams as sources of wisdom. Ancient cultures saw them as messages from gods, visions of prophecy, doors into other worlds. Though science explains them as neural activity, the reverence holds truth. Dreams reveal what the waking mind cannot. They reveal not because they are divine, but because they are human, the deepest, strangest expression of the human brain in motion. Creativity in dreams also blurs the boundary between inner and outer reality. For when the brain creates visions vivid enough to feel real, it reminds us that perception itself is a construction. Waking life feels stable, but it too is built from neurons, assembled from signals, filtered by mind. Dreams are not the opposite of reality, but its cousin, revealing that both are inventions of consciousness. The difference is that one dissolves at dawn, while the other persists with the sun. The power of dreams to create, to invent, to inspire is perhaps their greatest gift. They remind us that imagination is not bound by reason, that the mind is more than memory and logic. It is a maker of worlds, a weaver of visions, a playwright of infinite theaters. Every night, within the silence of sleep, you carry the capacity to create entire universes, fleeting, fragile, absurd, yet profound. And though they dissolve with waking, their influence endures. The song remains, the idea persists, the painting emerges, the problem is solved. The dream leaves its trace in waking life, invisible but indelible. The creations of the night become the inventions of the day. Dreams are the mind's most mysterious art, and their creativity is not an accident. It is the essence of what it means to be human, to imagine, to invent, to shape the unseen into the seen. Every night, your brain creates worlds you cannot keep, but from their ashes, new ideas rise. And that is why, in the strangeness of dreams, humanity has always found its genius. Since the beginning of time, humanity has stood in awe of its dreams. Long before science peered into the brain, long before we knew of neurons or REM sleep, people looked at the visions of the night and believed they were messages. To dream was to cross a threshold, to step into a realm where gods whispered, where ancestors returned, where the future revealed itself in fragments of symbol. And even today, though science has explained much, the feeling lingers. For there is something in dreams that resists reduction, something in their strangeness that insists upon meaning. The oldest civilizations inscribed dreams into their cultures as seriously as they recorded wars and harvests. In ancient Mesopotamia, kings consulted dream interpreters before battles, believing that the night offered glimpses of fate. In Egypt, temples were built where dreamers could sleep, their visions interpreted as divine messages. In Greece, philosophers and physicians debated whether dreams came from the gods or from the humors of the body, while oracles wove them into prophecy. Dreams became omens, guides, revelations. To dismiss them was to risk blindness to the will of the universe. Even as centuries passed, the symbolic weight of dreams endured. Religions held them as pathways to revelation. Philosophers wrestled with them as puzzles of the mind. And in the 20th century, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung returned to them, seeing in their symbols the language of the unconscious. Freud saw dreams as disguised wish fulfillment, the secret desires of the psyche cloaked in surreal imagery. Jung saw them as archetypes, universal symbols drawn from a collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human meaning. To both, dreams were not noise, but communication, a coded language in which the psyche spoke to itself. Modern neuroscience, with its measurements and scans, tends to be cautious with such interpretations. It sees the hippocampus replaying memories, the amygdala coloring them with emotion, the prefrontal cortex silenced, the networks colliding in chaos. Yet even here, science cannot escape the strangeness of symbolism. For when fragments of memory combine into dreams, they often do so not at random, but in ways that feel symbolic, meaningful, resonant. A dream of drowning may follow a day of anxiety. A dream of flight may mirror a longing for escape. The brain stitches images into stories that, though irrational, carry the weight of metaphor. And so, the question lingers. Do dreams reveal truths, or do we impose them? Are they coded messages, or are they mirrors in which we see what we need to see? Perhaps the answer is both, for meaning in dreams may not lie in prophecy, but in pattern. The subconscious mind holds more than we can consciously grasp. It notices subtle details, gathers impressions, perceives risks and opportunities unnoticed by daylight. At night, when logic releases its grip, these fragments emerge in symbols. To the dreamer, they may feel prophetic, as though glimpsing the future. But perhaps what is glimpsed is not tomorrow, but the unnoticed present. Patterns sensed, but not recognized until the dream revealed them. This does not make dreams less mysterious. It makes them more so. For if they are mirrors of our hidden mind, they are also windows into depths we rarely acknowledge. A single dream can reveal fears we denied, longings we suppressed, truths we avoided. They confront us in symbols too strange to ignore, disguising themselves so that we might bear their weight. And then there are the dreams that defy even this explanation. Dreams that come with such clarity, such coherence, that they feel more real than waking. Dreams of places never visited, yet described with detail. Dreams of events that later unfold, uncanny in their resemblance. Science explains them as coincidence, the result of countless dreams forgotten, and only the rare accurate ones remembered. Yet the power they hold cannot be dismissed. For to the mind decrees, but to let the mind speak in the only language deep enough to hold its truths, the language of symbol. To dream is to converse with oneself in images, to hear the whispers of the psyche in the theater of the night. It is no wonder, then, that dreams have always been revered. They remind us that our minds are not wholly under our control, that there are depths beneath our consciousness, and that those depths have their own voice. They remind us that meaning is not confined to reason, but flows also through symbol, through story, through mystery. Every dream, no matter how strange, carries this symbolic weight. It may not be prophecy, but it is revelation. It may not be divine, but it is deeply human. And though the symbols dissolve with dawn, they leave their imprint. A dream of falling leaves the trace of fear. A dream of reunion leaves the warmth of longing. A dream of vision leaves the spark of inspiration. Dreams are strange because we are strange. They are symbolic because we are symbolic. They are, in the end, the most human of mysteries, fragments of memory, emotion, and imagination stitched together into stories that, though fleeting, carry meaning far beyond their brief existence. And that is why, even now, in an age of science and skepticism, we still wake and ask, what did my dream mean? For in the end, dreams are not only neural storms. They are the soul's metaphors, the psyche's poetry, the nightly reminder that beneath reason lies mystery, and beneath mystery, truth. There are moments when the dream pulls back its curtain and reveals itself. You are within it, walking streets that never existed, speaking words you have never spoken, when suddenly you realize, this is a dream. The revelation does not wake you in fantasies, creating impossible landscapes. Others have treated it as laboratory, seeking insight, rehearsing skills, confronting fears. But whatever the purpose, lucid dreaming reveals one profound truth, that the dream is not an immutable reality, but a canvas, and awareness is the brush that paints it. Science has begun to measure this strange threshold. In studies, lucid dreamers have been able to signal researchers from within their dreams, moving their eyes in predetermined patterns detectable by instruments. These signals prove that lucidity is real, that awareness can awaken in REM sleep without breaking it. In this state, the dreamer retains control while the brain continues its theater of vision and sensation. Consciousness and dreaming, long thought to be opposites, coexist. But lucidity is only one frontier of the alien mind revealed in sleep. There are darker edges, too. Sleep paralysis is one of them. That unsettling moment when the body wakes, but the dream does not fully release its hold. The dreamer lies frozen, unable to move, caught between sleep and wakefulness. The shadows of dreams linger in the room, figures at the bedside, whispers in the air, a weight pressing on the chest. Across cultures, these visions have been named demons, spirits, intruders. In truth, they are remnants of the dream world overlapping with waking perception, hallucinations born of the brain's liminal state. Yet their terror is undeniable, for they remind us of the fragility of the boundary between reality and illusion. Other experiences blur that boundary even further. Some dreams carry such vividness, such coherence, that they feel more real than waking life. The colors sharper, the sensations stronger, the emotions overwhelming. Dreamers wake shaken, unable to dismiss the memory. If waking life is our standard of reality, such dreams challenge the standard, suggesting that what we call real is only one form of perception among many. If neurons can generate a world more convincing than the one outside, then reality itself is revealed as fragile, constructed, contingent. These strange experiences, lucid dreams, sleep paralysis, hyper-vivid visions, reveal the dream as more than nightly hallucination. They reveal it as an altered state of consciousness, a realm where perception itself is flexible, where the brain demonstrates its capacity to generate worlds and selves without external input. In this sense, dreams are not illusions, but demonstrations of power, proof that the brain can create reality from within. Philosophers have long wondered whether life itself is a dream. Zhuangzi spoke of dreaming he was a butterfly, then waking unsure if he was a man who dreamed or a butterfly dreaming of being human. Descartes questioned whether the certainty of waking life could ever be proven, for dreams, too, feel real. Lucid dreams and hyper-vivid visions give weight to these questions. They show that the mind can generate realities indistinguishable from the external world. They remind us that the difference between waking and dreaming may be thinner than we imagine. For some, lucid dreaming becomes a spiritual practice, a way of exploring consciousness, of confronting the depths of self. For others, it becomes a tool of healing, facing nightmares with awareness, transforming terror into mastery. For still others, it remains a playground of imagination, a chance to taste freedom from the constraints of physics. Whatever the purpose, it demonstrates the same truth. Dreams are not prisons. They are worlds, and within them, awareness can awaken. Yet in their strangeness lies a deeper mystery. Why does the brain allow such states at all? Why can consciousness awaken in dreams? Why can dreams intrude upon waking? Perhaps because the boundaries we draw between waking, dreaming, sleeping, and imagining are not absolute. They are fluid states of the same mind, shifting seamlessly, overlapping at their edges. Dreams reveal this fluidity by exaggerating it, by pulling us into their alien logic, by reminding us that reality itself is an interpretation. And so, at the edges of sleep, the mind becomes alien to itself. It reveals powers we did not know it had, terrors we cannot dismiss, worlds we cannot forget. It shows us that perception is not fixed, but fluid. That consciousness is not singular, but layered. That reality is not given, but made. In lucid dreams, we awaken within illusion. In sleep paralysis, we confront the overlap of worlds. In hyper-vivid visions, we question the nature of reality itself. These are not errors of the brain, but revelations of its depth. They show us that the dream is not only a nightly hallucination, but a portal, not to other dimensions perhaps, but to the hidden capacities of our own minds. Every night, we step into this alien realm, and sometimes it steps back into us. Dreams remind us that the mind is stranger than we know, that reality is more fragile than we assume, and that within the silence of sleep lies a cosmos as vast and mysterious as the one above the stars. Science has always sought to measure what feels immeasurable. It weighs the stars, counts the atoms, maps the unseen. Yet when it turns to dreams, it confronts a frontier unlike any other. For dreams unfold within, behind closed eyes, in landscapes that vanish at dawn. They are experiences lived without witness, visions without physical trace. To study them is to chase smoke, to measure shadows. And yet, slowly, science has begun to illuminate the hidden theater of the night. The first step was to recognize that dreams follow the rhythms of sleep itself. With the discovery of REM in the 1950s, researchers realized that dreaming had a biological marker: rapid eye movements, a restless body stilled by paralysis, bursts of brain activity almost indistinguishable from waking life. This was the opening of the door. For the first time, science could point to a stage of sleep and say, here, the dream begins. Electroencephalography, EEG, mapped the brain's waves through these cycles. Researchers saw how slow, deep waves gave way to chaotic surges in REM. Later, functional MRI revealed which parts of the brain ignited during dreams. The visual cortex painting images, the amygdala saturating them with emotion, the hippocampus replaying memory, the prefrontal cortex silenced. Piece by piece, the machinery of dreams emerged, like glimpses of gears behind a hidden clock. But even these maps could not capture content. They showed the when and the where, but not the what. The dream itself remained elusive. To know it, researchers still relied on the dreamer's account, fragile and incomplete upon waking. Words are blunt tools for visions that dissolve so quickly. Much is lost in the telling. And yet, new methods are bringing science closer. In recent years, experiments have shown that it is possible to communicate with dreamers while they dream. Lucid dreamers, aware within their visions, have answered activity during wakefulness. They can compare those patterns to activity during sleep, extracting faint echoes of the dream. The results are crude, blurry impressions, but they are the first steps toward externalizing the internal, toward making visible the invisible worlds of the night. This pursuit raises questions as vast as its promise. If we could one day record dreams, would we wish to watch them, to replay them, analyze them, share them? Would the private theater of the mind remain private, or would it become just another form of media? Dreams are intimate, revealing fears and desires often hidden even from ourselves. To expose them to others would be to strip the soul of its secrecy. Science may grant us the power, but whether we should wield it is another matter. Already, there are experiments to influence dreams from outside. Sounds, smells, even words played during sleep can shape the dream's content, guiding its symbols. Advertisers have already tested ways to slip brands into the theater of the night. Therapists imagine tools to treat trauma by rewriting nightmares. Artists dream of co-creating with the unconscious. The dream, once sovereign, may become a canvas manipulated from beyond. At the frontier of this research lies a paradox. The more we measure, the more we realize that dreams are not accidents, but processes essential to memory, emotion, and creativity. And yet, the more we seek to control them, the more we risk diminishing their wildness, the very strangeness that gives them power. For dreams heal and inspire, not because they obey, but because they wander. They speak in symbols, because symbols are what the rational mind cannot reach. To imagine a future where dreams are recorded, edited, programmed, is to imagine a future where the boundary between waking and dreaming dissolves. Nights would no longer be private, mornings no longer filled with mystery. The dream would become artifact, data, commodity. Some would welcome this, seeking to master even the unconscious. Others would mourn the loss of mystery, the vanishing of the last wilderness of the mind. Perhaps the true gift of science is not that it will master dreams, but that it reveals their depth. By mapping the brain, by measuring its rhythms, by glimpsing its images, science confirms what humanity has always felt, that dreams are not meaningless. They are not random noise, but essential currents of the mind. They are survival rehearsals, memory forges, emotional balancers, creative laboratories. They are not accidents, but necessities. And yet, even with all this knowledge, the mystery remains. For no map can capture the feel of flying, the ache of reunion, the terror of the chase. No algorithm can replicate the intensity of being immersed in a dream, believing in its impossible truth. The essence of dreams may lie beyond measurement, because their essence is not in the mechanism, but in the experience. The frontier of dream science is thrilling and unsettling. It promises insight into the deepest recesses of the mind, tools to heal, to create, to control. But it also reminds us that the dream, like consciousness itself, may never be fully grasped. They're not only biological events, they are also philosophical questions. Each night, as consciousness slips into its private theater, we are reminded of the fragility of reality itself. For in dreams, the impossible feels true, the absurd feels ordinary, and the unreal feels real. And if such visions can deceive us so completely in sleep, what does that say about the world we call waking? Philosophers have wrestled with this question for millennia. In ancient China, the sage Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly, fluttering freely in the sunlight. Upon waking, he asked himself, was he a man who dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming he was a man? The story survives not as anecdote, but as provocation, forcing us to confront the uncertainty of identity and the instability of what we call real. Centuries later, René Descartes posed a similar question. How can we know with certainty that we are awake? The senses deceive us, memory falters, and in dreams, we are equally convinced of truth. Descartes concluded that the only indubitable fact was thought itself, cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But the problem he raised remains. If the dream feels real, then reality may be only another dream. Modern science does not dismiss these ancient doubts. In fact, it amplifies them. We know now that perception is not a direct mirror of the world, but a construction. The brain receives fragments of data from the senses and assembles them into a coherent image. What we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell are not the world itself, but the brain's interpretation of signals. Reality is always mediated, always translated, always filtered. In this sense, waking life and dreaming life are not opposites, but variations of the same process. Both are experiences generated by the brain. One is tethered to external input. The other is free-floating, self-generated. But both are constructed realities. This recognition unsettles, for it means that the solidity of waking life is not as absolute as we assume. If the brain can generate entire worlds in dreams, complete with landscapes, conversations, even the sensation of time and gravity, then what guarantee do we have that it's not fixed? It is fluid, shifting, constructed moment by moment. They remind us that what feels absolute may be provisional, that what feels eternal may dissolve, that what feels true may be illusion. This does not diminish reality. It deepens it, for it reveals that meaning lies not in permanence, but in experience. In this light, dreams are not escapes from reality, but reflections of it. They show us the same fragility, the same fluidity, the same paradoxes. In dreams, contradictions coexist. The dead return, time fractures, logic bends. In waking life, contradictions also abound. Joy and sorrow, life and death, certainty and doubt. Dreams exaggerate the surreal nature of existence, reminding us that life itself is not as orderly as we pretend. The philosophy of dreaming also raises a profound question. If life feels real and dreams feel real, what ultimately distinguishes them? Some argue that the difference lies in joy and sorrow, life and death, certainty and doubt. Dreams exaggerate the surreal nature of existence, reminding us that life itself is not as orderly as we pretend. The philosophy of dreaming also raises a profound question. If life feels real and dreams feel real, what ultimately distinguishes them? Some argue that the difference lies in continuity. Waking life persists, dreams dissolve. Others argue that the difference lies in sharedness. Waking life is a collective dream. Deceive? If consciousness can inhabit illusions, if meaning can be found in symbols, then perhaps reality is not a matter of absolutes, but of experiences. What is real is what is felt, what is lived, what leaves its trace upon the self. Dreams, then, are not trivial hallucinations. They are philosophical lessons, teaching us to doubt, to question, to wonder. They remind us that the world we inhabit is itself a construction, fragile and fleeting, no less mysterious than the visions behind closed eyes. To dream is to encounter the truth of consciousness, that reality is not given, but made, and that we are both its audience and its creators. Every night, as you drift into dreams, you rehearse this truth. You live. The dream has always been wild, ungoverned, a private theater no one could control. For thousands of years, it was a mystery untouched by tools, a wilderness that belonged only to the unconscious. But now, as science advances, humanity begins to wonder, what if the dream could be shaped? What if the worlds of the night could be engineered, designed, rewritten? What if the last refuge of the imagination became a frontier of technology? Already, hints of this future exist. Experiments show that dreams can be nudged, guided, influenced. A sound introduced during sleep can find its way into the dream as thunder, music, or voice. A scent can become a memory woven into the fabric of the vision. Words whispered in the sleeping ear can shape the story unfolding in the brain. The border between outside and inside is porous, and through it, the waking world can step into the dream. What begins as experiment quickly becomes possibility. Advertisers dream of slipping their brands into dreams, planting images that linger beyond waking. Therapists imagine rewriting nightmares, turning terror into resolution. Artists imagine co-creating with the unconscious, feeding prompts into the brain to see what visions it generates in reply. The wildness of dreams may soon meet the precision of intention. The ethical questions are immediate. Dreams are intimate, perhaps the most intimate realm we possess. They hold our fears, our desires, our grief, our secret longings. They are mirrors of the soul, and to manipulate them is to trespass upon the deepest privacy. Should anyone, scientist, company, government, have the right to step into the dream? And if they do, what is lost? For the power of dreams lies in their unpredictability, their refusal to obey. To engineer them is to risk taming what was meant to wander. Yet the allure is strong. Imagine a future where trauma can be healed by reshaping nightmares, where grief can be softened by summoning visions of the lost, where creativity can be amplified by guiding the unconscious into fertile directions. Imagine a future where dreams are recorded, edited, shared, films of the night projected onto screens by morning. Humanity, for the first time, would see the unseen worlds that unfold in every sleeper's mind. But with power comes danger. If dreams can be edited, they can be censored. If they can be designed, they can be exploited. If they can be shared, they can be stolen. The sanctity of the inner life would no longer be inviolable. The last wilderness of the mind could become territory, traded and sold. Perhaps this is why dreams have always resisted control. They dissolve with waking, leaving only fragments, reminders of their fragility. They defy capture, defy permanence. They are wild by design. To tame them is to misunderstand them, for their meaning lies not. They heal because they are symbolic. They inspire because they are unpredictable. If we strip them of this, do we strip them of their essence? The future of dreaming will be a test of balance between healing and intrusion, between art and exploitation, between exploration and violation. We may gain new tools to understand and shape our inner lives, but we must decide how far to go. For to lose the mystery of dreams is to lose something essential, the reminder that not all of life can be controlled, that some realms remain untamed. And yet, perhaps technology will not destroy this mystery, but deepen it. Perhaps in learning to influence dreams, we will discover new truths about consciousness. Perhaps in recording them, we will see the vastness of the mind more clearly. Perhaps in sharing them, we will remember that we are all dreamers, carrying within us universes that vanish at dawn. The danger is real, but so is the promise. For in the end, the dream may remain what it has always been, the bridge between what is and what could be. Whether engineered or wild, it will continue to reveal the mind's power to create, to heal, to imagine. Even as science advances, even as technology reaches deeper, the essence of dreams may endure. The fragile, fleeting, beautiful reminder that within each of us lies an infinite world, made and unmade each night. The future of dreaming is not only a question of science, but of philosophy, of ethics, of awe. It is a question of whether we will respect the wilderness of the mind or whether we will seek to pave it. It is a question of whether we will see dreams as commodities or as mysteries. And perhaps it is a question we must ask not only of dreams, but of ourselves. For how we treat the dream will reveal how we treat the soul. And so, we stand on the threshold of possibility. The last private frontier of human experience may soon open to the tools of science and technology. But whether we cross that threshold with reverence or with greed will determine not only the future of dreaming, but the future of what it means to be human. In worlds that dissolve at dawn, yet their meanings endure. You wake, and life resumes. Another dream, constructed by neurons and senses, lasting until the final waking. Perhaps in the end, the difference between dreams and reality is not what they are made of, but how long they last. One vanishes in hours. The other endures a lifetime. Both are fleeting. Both are real. Night after night, as the world grows quiet, the human mind slips into its hidden life. Behind closed eyes, it creates universes. It builds landscapes never walked, speaks conversations never spoken, relives memories, reshapes emotions, rehearses futures. It does all of this without conscious command, without effort, without intention. To sleep is not to rest, but to transform. And so every night, your brain creates dreams. Strange, chaotic, beautiful, terrifying. They may seem fragile, dissolving in the light of dawn, but their traces remain. They stitch memories into permanence, regulate the storms of emotion, ignite creativity, reveal hidden truths. They shape who you are, even when you forget them. You are built not only by your waking hours, but by your dreaming ones. Dreams remind us of the paradox of being human, that we are both rational and irrational, both orderly and chaotic, both logical and symbolic. In the dream, these contradictions coexist. The impossible feels ordinary. The absurd feels true. The unreal feels real. This is not error. It is revelation. For dreams show us that meaning does not always lie in order, but often in strangeness, in symbol, in metaphor. They show us that the self is not fixed, but woven anew each night. They also remind us of the fragility of reality. If the brain can create entire worlds in sleep, what then is waking life? If the dream can deceive so completely, what does that say of the world we believe in? Perhaps reality itself is a dream we share, a hallucination stabilized by collective agreement. Perhaps to live is to dream with open eyes. And yet, whether dream or reality, the experience matters. The laughter in a dream is real laughter. The fear in a nightmare is real fear. The inspiration from a vision is real inspiration. The line between dream and waking is not as sharp as we imagine. Both shape us. Both are us. One day, science may learn to record dreams, to manipulate them, to share them. One day, we may walk not only through our own dreamscapes, but through those of others. But even then, the mystery will remain. For no measurement can capture the essence of the dream, the feeling of being inside it, believing in its impossible truth. The mystery lies not in the mechanism, but in the experience. And perhaps that is the lesson. Dreams remind us that life itself is dreamlike, fleeting, fragile, filled with meaning that cannot always be explained. We pass through it as through a vision, real yet unreal, brief yet infinite. When it ends, what remains is not the details, but the emotions, the impressions, the sense of having lived, just as in dreams. So tonight, when you close your eyes, remember, you are not falling into nothingness. You are stepping into another life, one stitched by memory, soaked in emotion, lit by imagination. You are entering a world that will dissolve with dawn, yet leave its mark upon your soul. You are entering the nightly truth that the mind is infinite, that reality is fragile, that meaning is everywhere. Why does your brain create crazy dreams every night? Because to dream is to be human. Because the mind cannot stop creating, even in silence. Because the self is fragile and must be rewoven again and again. Because life itself is a dream, and dreams remind us of the miracle of being. You will wake tomorrow, the dream dissolved, but its traces will remain in your memory, in your emotions, in your imagination. And when you dream again, you will once more glimpse the hidden universe within. The dream is fragile. The dream is fleeting. The dream is everything.